There is no happily ever after in terms of figuring out your passion. What you will find is a path, and what you also should develop at the same time is a courage to walk on that path. Is start with the big picture, and as you move forward, you will discover the details, and detail might just surprise you because it might be something that you absolutely did not have in mind. Remain open to possibilities. Keep yourself open to possibilities.
What's going on, guys? Today I have with me Simerjeet Singh. With over 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube and 50 million plus views on his inspirational videos, Simerjeet has touched many lives across the globe, inspiring them to take action on the things that truly matter in their lives. With over 14 years of international experience in the motivational speaking space, having served more than 300 organizations worldwide and 80 different nationalities, Mr. Singh specializes in customized, engaging, and inspirational keynotes and virtual programs for diverse audiences, from student groups to large multinational corporations. Simerjeet Singh is today well known across the globe as a keynote speaker, mindset coach, and a growth catalyst with a humanitarian mindset. In 2019, Simerjeet was recognized with the prestigious Global Excellence Award in motivational speaking. He's also been featured on the Power List of the top 200 thought leaders to follow in 2021. He's currently serving clients virtually, operating from an end-to-end setup of a dedicated, fully equipped studio with high-end acoustics and professional lighting and cameras to ensure state-of-the-art virtual keynote delivery. I welcome the thoughtful, inspiring, and refined Simerjeet Singh. Before we start, could you do like a little introduction for anybody that's not aware of who you are?
So the past 14 years now, I've been working independently as a full-time motivational stroke keynote speaker, speaking largely around the subjects of self-development, people finding their passion, innovation and creativity, leadership, those sort of things, helping individuals and teams reach their highest potential, and based largely on my own life experiences as well as what I've picked up on this journey. And 2007 is when I moved back to India after having spent about 7 to 8 years abroad in different parts of the world. If you ask me to introduce myself and I start recalling my journey, I think I always sort of gravitate back to 2007 because that's where the major transformation happened. That's where the shift happened. The big move from what society, culture, conditioning, or sort of those sort of the automatic choices, the paths that they were taking me on. But post 2007, it was like a conscious decision. This is what I want to do, and a lot went into it. So that's been my journey. Pre 2007, I'm a student of the hotel school in Sydney, and I've done my hotel management from Chandigarh in India also. I grew up in a small town in Punjab called Batala, and I was there till my grade 12th. And then I moved for my education to Chandigarh and then Sydney, Australia. After Sydney, Australia, the hotel school, what next happened was the beginning of my global hospitality journey with Marriott in the US. That was my first job. That's when Dad had cancer, and I relocated back to India to look after him. 2007. So just about as my career was taking off, so I had to make a major change in my geographical location, leave my job, etc., rebuild it, and then start again from scratch. So the pre-2007 era had me moving and living in 5 different countries with some of the leading hotel companies in the world. And I think that left a deep impression on me also in who I am today. I look at them as the hospitality thing and what I'm doing now, not something that's in contradiction with each other, but as steps on the ladder. So that part brought me to where I am today, and we're very excited. So after COVID happened, I had to reinvent myself yet once again, from being a keynote speaker to being a virtual keynote speaker. So getting used to all the technology and the gear and the acoustics, and just ensuring that we bring the same level of engagement and sort of joy and happiness and learning and inspiration in a virtual session as would happen in a live session. So yeah, it's been an ongoing learning journey, Richard.
I think that brings us on nicely to Really, I suppose what our topic is, what our core topic is, we might branch off, but how do you find your passion and then how do you pursue that? I know that one of your quotes actually, which is kind of what we're going to talk about, is once said, I believe that success is finding our purpose and then designing a life that embraces it.
There are two parts to that quote. One is discovering your purpose and designing a life that embraces it. So a lot of people are actually able to accomplish step one, know what they want, know what they enjoy, know the sort of direction they like to head into, but then fail to take massive action in terms of reorienting their priorities. Yeah. And sort of saying no to a lot of things. So let's go to your first question, which was how does one find their purpose? Now the idea, the whole way, the method that we've been taught or we've been conditioned to believe in is that it's like a aha moment that happens, so you like in an instant. It's like a one defining moment. You discover your purpose and you say, aha, Eureka, I found it. And it's not, for me, it wasn't anything like that. And I believe the process is slow, the process is gradual, it's incremental. And it builds up to a point where you have that aha moment, but there's a lot that goes into it before that aha moment saying, this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my life. So exploration really helps in terms of narrowing down to possibilities of things that you'd like to do, because in the process of exploration, that is pursuing multiple things, pursuing multiple careers if need be, or professions, or taking a short break to discover what you want to do. Because in the process of exploration, you will not only, the chances are very high that you will stumble upon something that you like, and also you are going to find out a lot of things that you do not like. So by process of elimination, you're now closer to, there's more self-knowledge, there's more self-awareness through action rather than through contemplation. And I think you can only go thus far with sitting and contemplating in a room about what I'd like to do. The better way would be to go out and try, and that's going to help you to discover these are the things that I like doing, and these are the things that I do not enjoy so much. They don't come to me naturally. I have to put in a lot of extra hard work. And but this thing here, if I do this all day, for example, helping other people, or for example, for somebody it could be accounting could be their calling, surgery could be somebody else's, right? Or for someone like Elon Musk, making human beings a multi-planetary species, that could be his calling, and he could devote the rest of his adult life, his conscious life, to that cause. So what you are going to discover on this journey of exploration are things that you enjoy doing, that come to you naturally, that you don't feel tired doing them. And there are other things that exhaust you. You feel you have to put in a lot of extra effort. So now sift and sort. And what happens is, now another romantic myth that I must break in pursuing your passion is this, that is not like, there is no happily ever after. There is no happily ever after in terms of figuring out your passion or your purpose. So it's not like I've discovered motivational speaking is going to be my calling, and that there are no major changes that have happened in the last 14 years. Absolutely, that would be an incorrect statement to make. There's been changes every few days, every few weeks. As you evolve, your purpose is going to evolve. You must give yourself permission to do that. You must be aware and awake in order to find out what changes are happening. So it's an ongoing process, this whole discovering your purpose thing is. It's an ongoing process. What you will find is a path. And what you also should develop at the same time is a courage to walk on that path. And the path is going to change. It's going to evolve. There's going to be many twists and turns, unexpected. But that process of adaptation is what you're going to enjoy the most, rather than just sticking to the one thing that you think is your purpose or calling.
As you get older and you discover more things and you're like, oh, I like this, or maybe I want to do this. If it comes to career, how do you pinpoint the one thing that you should move ahead with?
I would suggest whoever's on this quest to begin with something vague and begin with the big picture. If you want to get very specific about it right at the first go, and you want like specific results, or I want to really narrow down right now, that wouldn't happen. It would disappoint you, and that disappointment could lead to you backing off from the entire process and going back to your comfort zone once again. So what I would suggest to whoever's out on a quest to find their purpose is start with the big picture. And as you move forward, you will discover the details. And the details, the end detail, might just surprise you because it might be something that you absolutely did not have in mind. So, case in point, my own journey, so 2007, when I decided I'm going to create a major shift, a major transformation in my life, this is how the sequence happened. So, the big decisions came first. The first one of the major decisions was I'm going to leave the hospitality industry, right? Although I was very much on the path to my next step, which was the property general manager and then regional general manager, and those were my next two steps. And I was doing very well. I was for those two steps, I could have very well made it, but that was a very strong, conscious, bold decision to say no. This is what I would not like because I'd done my research. And I see after transitioning from a general manager to a regional general manager, you're not even based on a hotel property anymore. You're based in the regional office, and all you're doing is working on the figures. I'm going to lose what I love the most, and what I love the most is being among people, being with people. Right. So I'd done my research on what the next two steps were, and I had the courage to, and I meditated on this long enough to say this is not what I want. So I'm going to say no to it. That was the first major decision. Now, let's be clear about the fact that at this point I had no clue that if this is what I'm rejecting, what am I saying yes to? Now that slot was vacant. That position was empty. What am I going to do? Not clear yet. But this is clear that
you didn't know you were going to go into this yet. What you're doing?
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. There's going to be a lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty in following your calling, and one should get comfortable with that. If there is a lot of clarity, you're probably not making a bold choice. You're probably not doing what you should be doing because you're still in your comfort zone. If you know the next 10 steps, in an ideal circumstances, if you know the one or two steps, it's good enough, and it's a sign that you're venturing into something really big that could have a major impact on your life. So, decision to leave the hospitality industry, done and taken. Next one was relocation. I would like to move back to India in order to develop my entrepreneurial journey. I'm going to be with the family. There's my safety zone. Things don't go well. I'm back home. Financial support and so many others, my connections, and my global knowledge that I could now tap into. Let's be again clear. I still had no clue what I'm going to do, right? So, but big decision number one, big decision number two, pack my bags, left my job, moved back to India. The next big thing was I will not work for another enterprise or for another individual. I've done that for the last 10 years. It's been great, learned a lot, but I feel I have a lot more ideas, a lot more creativity within me, and I need the environment, the culture to unleash that. And that could only happen if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm the one who's calling the shots, and I need that, right? Yeah. So this was decision number 3. So 3 big decisions. Say no to the next steps of my career, move back to India, and being an entrepreneur. So with these 3, so I think it starts by saying no to what lies ahead. Saying no to the predictable path. And now the next thing is, so what would I like to do? Here came in handy the multiple workshops that I was attending. And, one of them had this question, what are you most passionate about? What do you enjoy doing? I took the Gallup strength test. There was more awareness, not only more self-awareness, but also external validation of the fact that, hey, these are your top strengths and you're a developer. My Gallup top strength was developer and positivity and leadership and those sort of things. Yeah. So I narrowed down to education. There's something I'd like to do will have to do with educating other people, right? Yep. As broad as this, I said, and I told my wife, when we were worried about how we'd work things out, I said, we could, worst come to worst, we'll put up a signboard outside where we live, outside the house, say English teaching, English classes, right? Or how to clear your, and there's a huge demand for that in my state. I'm in Punjab. There's a big chunk of the youngsters here want to move abroad to the UK or US or Canada or wherever it happens to be. There's a huge demand for learning English. And I told my wife, I said, if worst comes to worst, we have this option available, but let's explore anyway. So this was the next. So if you see the process, I'm moving from the big picture to the details. Yeah. And this is my suggestion to everyone who's watching or listening right now is, if you get stuck in the details in the beginning, you will probably never ever move forward because you will be overwhelmed with, oh, this is not going to work out. You haven't gone through the process. So start with the big picture, narrow it down and move towards the details. And now we're moving to education, right? Which is, again, it's very big. It's very vague, it's very broad. Until I met a friend, Richard. I met a friend who was a US citizen, a green card holder, and he moved back to the same city which I live in Jalandhar in Punjab. And I said, can I come over and we could have a cup of coffee? And I want to see how you're doing, how are things, could you tell me about how to set up a company? And I'd been out of touch with how things work around here. Could you introduce me to your accountant, et cetera, et cetera? Said, yeah, sure, come over. So with no intent of, that he's going to be a mentor or probably something good will come out of this conversation, et cetera, I said, let me just meet this person. And this is another thing, remain open to possibilities. Keep yourself open to possibilities. Your next big idea, something that you're struggling with, could come from the least expected. So in our conversation, he asked us, what do you plan to do in education, right? I said, well, I've done executive coaching, I've done NLP, I've done this, I've got 11 years experience, I can do leadership coaching, blah, blah, blah. And somewhere among those words, I happen to say motivation. I'd like to motivate others. And it was as if he was waiting to hear it. He said, really? He said, well, Simerjeet, I got a team of 15 people, software engineers. Their work is pretty dull and focused. And, and I think they're feeling a little low these days. Could you do something? And, and so now the opportunity presented itself. And I wasn't consciously pursuing it. I was not consciously pursuing this opportunity to find my first speaking engagement. But it was like a knock on the door, knock, knock, right? I had no clue, Richard. Never done it before in my life. I'd seen others do it. I'd seen Tony Robbins do it. I'd seen my NLP trainer do it, Bruce Farrow at Helfer 2000, wonderful gentleman. I saw them do it. I watched videos. I'd listened to other people. And I knew deep down I would love something like that, but I had no clue how I'm going to do it. And that's the next thing. As you step into the unknown, into the vague unknown, you will encounter a lot of situations where you don't know what you're doing, right? You don't know, you haven't done it before. That's the moment to say, yes. And even if you're not prepared. Yeah, even if you're scared, you're unprepared, and you underestimate yourself, but say yes. And by virtue of that, you're going to develop within yourself the courage, the beliefs, the resources, everything that you need. So I said, yes, I'll do it. I had no clue. I went back. I had 10 days in between, created, designed my first workshop. We originally allotted 6 hours for it. We were at it 8 hours and everybody was having fun. So that was like, wow. So I came back home that evening and I told myself, this is fun. This is something I could do. I said, okay, what do we call it now? Corporate training. That's what we started with. Again, very vague, very broad. Corporate training, personality development, etc., etc. And I've been narrowing down ever since to now keynote speaker, innovation, change, leadership, self-development, and self-growth. So it took me 14 years. So this is what I'm telling. This is my main message here is this. Don't be restless in arriving at that final thing. And it'll never be a final thing. It's ever evolving. But enjoy the journey. It's a process of filtration. And your purpose is, as Rumi said, he said, what you're looking for is also looking for you. And we need to be aware that if those are the sort of opportunities that we develop ourselves for, those opportunities are looking for people like us. We just need that readiness to be out there, that openness, and the sense of curiosity. And courage comes later, So even if you just have the curiosity, courage will follow.
Before we, I suppose, talk about the how, like for those, once you've found your passion, then what sort of steps do you have to take? I suppose just a question for you. You still love it as much as you did when you first started? Do you still have that same excitement?
As I said, there's no happily ever after. There will be aspects of your purpose, your calling, which you were so excited about, and you'll discover some aspects of it later on. You say, aha, I didn't anticipate this, or, that's life. That's part of the game. So travel was a big one for me earlier, pre-COVID. And I often joke about this. I complained so much about traveling frequently that COVID-19 happened and the lockdowns happened. And it was like the universe way of telling me, shut up, stop complaining, and realize this is what life would be like if you didn't have any travel. So I've spent the last 13 months in that realization. But having said that, I think the whole COVID-19 situation, the reinvention once again. And we pretty much had to start from scratch. We had to detach from any past successes, any past learning. We had to unlearn a lot of things, reinvent ourselves, start from scratch in this virtual game. And I think that brought in a whole lot of excitement back, because there's been a huge learning curve in terms of everything, in terms of the technology, the softwares, moving from getting used to being in front of a camera instead of being on stage, missing the delivering your message just without having any human feedback coming in. So a lot of times you got like 2,000 people logging in on a live stream, but you can't hear them, you can't see their facial expressions. So that extra hard work reignited the passion for what we're doing at the moment. This huge disruption has come as a blessing in disguise. And also, at the same time, it's brought a lot of international opportunities. It's made irrelevant the fact where you're located. So we're now serving clients all across the world in sort of locations that we would find it difficult to fly to earlier. So in an unexpected way, that has reawakened, re-energized, and it created a whole new pathway forward, which I believe will still remain even after COVID is gone. Corporations have begun to realize the value of virtual engagements. So at the moment, if say 90% or probably 100% of the work that I'm doing is virtual, I see even post-COVID at least 30% will stay. Just the sheer flexibility and convenience of having an expert speak on a certain topic and your team can listen to them. I don't think that's going to go away. That will stay.
I think it was with Yogesh Chabria. I think you know Yogesh.
I do.
We kind of talked about a similar thing. Just although it's not ideal, it's also presented a lot of other opportunities for a lot of businesses. And like you say, you get further reach because you don't have to be there physically. You can just jump on a Zoom call like we are. So you found your passion. How do you then, for people that are, I suppose, are stuck in that rut?
I think the first step is the awareness to understand that what's driving you so far is what's been programmed into us. Is what we've been conditioned to do. The sequence. You go to school, you be a good student, you graduate with good marks, you get a good job, you keep your head down, you don't get into trouble, you move up the corporate hierarchy, you get married, you have kids, you save some money, buy a house, buy a car, save some money for retirement, and post-retirement, you perhaps, if you are healthy still, you get an opportunity to do what you love. And that's the narrative, that's the story we've been sold, and so many of us have believed it, and we continue to do so because it's safe. It is safe. It's tried and tested. So a lot of people would say, hey, I would not like to take a chance. I don't want to reject this script. And what I'm asking you to do is have the courage to write your own script. And how do you develop that courage? By first becoming aware that the script that I've been following is not mine. It's been handed down to me by social, cultural conditioning, or my family, or what other people have done before me. And with due respect, it might have worked for them, but it might not work for you. They probably were very happy leading that life because of the economic, socio conditions back then, 50 years, 60 years from now. But you're living in a different world. You're living in a world full of opportunities. You're living in a world which is virtual, digital, in the second fastest growing economy on planet Earth, with a domestic market of more than 1.2 billion plus, which is exploding, which is growing, which a country which is just waking up from its slumber and ready to roar. And there's plenty of opportunities. So you don't need to follow the script that worked 50 years ago. So the first point in developing that courage is to understand what has been running you so far. The next point is, what do I want to be my driving force now? And what should be your driving force is your purpose, is your calling, is a life that is free from regrets. I think Jeff Bezos at Amazon uses this very simple method of, he calls it regret-free decision making. So whenever I have to take a decision, I'd like to mentally, visually fast forward myself 10 years from now, and then reflect back and see, if I didn't do this, would I have regret about this? And if the answer is yes, I'd do it. And if the answer is no, I'd probably move on to the next thing. Okay. So my message to everybody who's listening or watching right now is this. The life that you're living, when you're reflecting back on your choices 10 years from now, I hope you don't experience regret, because that would be a very dangerous and toxic place to be in if it's full of regrets. I wish I should have done that. I could have done it differently.
Yeah.
The famous book that was written by the Australian nurse, Bronnie Ware, I think, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. She wrote that book,
Yes.
looking after patients in palliative care, asking them this question, what are your top 5 regrets? And the number one was, I wish I had the courage to lead a life true to myself and not what others expected from me. Number one regret of dying people. And I urge everybody to go read the other 4 also, because there's great food for thought. These are mistakes of other people. You don't want to repeat them. You want to use them to learn from them so that we don't end up making the same mistakes. But consider number one, I wish I had the courage to lead a life true to myself. And that's going to involve risk taking, Richard. And that's where a lot of people don't pursue what they want. They know what they want, but they don't pursue what they want because of the risks. And my counter question to that is, what is the guarantee that the path that you think is very safe, what is the guarantee that there are no major risks involved? There is not a major disruption waiting for you around the corner. There is not another COVID-19 or pandemic or major technological disruption or automation or robotics or something else, that the job that you're clinging onto, perhaps some other technology could threaten it tomorrow. What will you do then? Yeah. And I know COVID-19 served that purpose for many people. Once they lost their jobs, once that safe path was gone, that's when they had the courage and the time and the resources to say, now I could be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But it's a painful way of doing it. Why wait for circumstances to push you? Why not develop the consciousness, the self-awareness to do it yourself? We human beings, after all, perhaps the only species who could do it, who could sit in a room, become self-aware by reflecting on your life's choices so far. Say, oh, this was right and this wasn't. So let that inner voice guide you. We're all born with that GPS system. If you're fulfilled at the end of the day, by and large, and there's going to be irritants, as I mentioned, in everything, but if you're fulfilled by and large, that's probably the direction you should keep walking on. But if there is a voice inside you that you're numbing with sex or alcohol or travel or some other thing, but you're numbing it down, you're not listening to that internal voice, you're doing yourself a huge disfavor by not listening to that voice. That voice is your friend, it's your coach, and it can guide you better than anybody else. I want to share this couple of poems that I had, Richard.
Please do.
One is actually from a speech by Teddy Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arena. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, and who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Who neither know victory nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt. And I think a powerful reminder for every single one of us. If you venture into the unknown, there are huge chances of failure, of you getting hurt and disappointed and things not working out the way you want them to. But at the same time, there is no guarantee that the path that you consider safe, that it's going to be safe all the way through. You don't know what's going to happen a couple of months from now. So life is all about risk-taking. Helen Keller, she said it best. She said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. So take that chance. Take that chance. And if it works out, it's great. If not, you've probably learned some very important lessons from that process. But you don't want to end up with regret.
It reminds me, have you heard of the SAS, the Special Air Service?
Of course I have.
Their motto is he who dares wins. And it's kind of almost got that kind of undertone to it, isn't it?
It does.
You have to take the step, you've got to take that.
There'll be very little competition because a lot of people are going to tread the safe path. So there's going to be very little competition.
What's one things that you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that would have maybe elevated you sooner I know, and like I know, I kind of almost a bit counter to what we're talking about because we're talking about making mistakes, and that is where you learn. But sometimes there are things that this is more for people that are listening, no, so they can't, they don't make the mistake themselves.
I think moving from being driven by primal desires to being purpose driven, I wish that consciousness, if that would have developed maybe even 4 or 5 or 6 years earlier, that's sort of the only thing I'd like to undo at this moment. But hey, at that point of time, you're driven by hormones and you're driven by so many other things, and but your life is dictated by the primal urges, right? And the goals that you're chasing are pretty superficial, and I think for some of us, we need to achieve those superficial goals
Yeah,
in order to discover the hollowness of them. And for the others, if we could just develop the awareness that it's all transient and you don't actually possess anything, and what you're really here for is A, the thrill, fun of the journey of being alive, and B, in discovering and being all that you possibly could become, right? So if that would have happened a few years earlier, that's probably the only thing I'd like to undo. And especially for young people, I'd urge them to spend time in understanding that the goals that you aspire to achieve might not be your real goals. That might be the conditioning speaking inside you. That might be what you've seen in Hollywood movies or read about in books or what's glorified in society. You don't want to get to the top of that mountain and then discover, what now? I've spent my whole life getting here and now I see the pointlessness of this. So what do I do now? And it's important to have that course correction, that ability to course correct. The sooner you can do it, the better it is for you.
this is going back to the latter of I suppose, the main topic of. Although we've discussed, don't regret and take that leap of faith and follow it. There are so many people that still don't because there is fear there. What advice would you give to those people in terms of taking that small step? What small steps can someone take that's going to give them, I suppose, confidence to take a bigger leap rather than just taking the big leap straight away?
And I would suggest always the small steps are more effective because they're more sustainable. If you aim at a big leap, let's say you get up at 8 a.m. every morning and all of a sudden you plan to be up at 5:30, that's a big leap, and you're throwing your whole system off gear. I love this book, by the way. It's called Atomic Habits. I'm sure you must have heard of it. A lot of wisdom there, and all he's talking about is chunking things down, breaking your goals down into smaller, more achievable targets, kicking in what psychologists call achievement motivation. So if you're getting up at 8 and you move it to 7:45, you probably have that little sense of achievement today of being 15 minutes early, and use that to do a little bit more. And I look at the small step. If I could visualize it, it's like merging on a freeway using the side road. So if you're driving on the slip road and the speed limit on the freeway is, let's say, 120 kilometers per hour, and you're driving at 50 right now, and if all of a sudden you were to go onto the freeway, you'd be a danger to yourself and others. Some car is going to come from behind and hit you because the traffic on that freeway is moving at 120 and you're at 60, and that's why you're given that huge distance in between so that you can increase your speed, you can watch for the traffic coming on, and then merge onto the highway. And this is the sort of a similar process that people who are not sure that this is that they can follow in your current roles, whatever you're doing. You're a homemaker, corporate executive, you're a student, whatever you're doing right now, within your current role, there is great opportunity to pursue your passion. All it needs is creativity. All it needs is good people skills to convince people around you. All it needs is good time management for you to take out that extra half hour, 1 hour, and to pursue what could be your full-time thing later on. Let's say you're a homemaker and you'd like to start a YouTube channel, sharing recipes of your grandmom's Indian food or whatever, right? And you want to sell it then, and you want to open a little restaurant of your own, but you can't find the time to do it right now because you got 3 kids running around, you got so many other things to do. How about start with half an hour? move it up to 45 minutes. It's better time management. So a couple of things that you'll need is better time management, a little creativity. So a lot of people, I believe, Richard, are stuck in this mindset. I either should have all of it or I'll have none of it, right? And that's a trap, right? For example, if I have to be fit, one of the options for me is 2 hours in the gym or nothing at all. And I would always ask people, how about a 15-minute walk? How about going up and down the stairs 15 times or 10 times or, whatever you could? How about 100 push-ups today, right? No, Bob. For me to be fit, I need to be going to the best gym in the town, and I need to have 2 hours to spare, hire the best trainer, and that's the path. And that's not the path. So the path is to find out small, little breakthroughs, little inlets, and you use them, and you build on their energy. So to wrap up my answer to this, you could be very busy, very occupied with what you're doing, and yet miserable. And in order to escape that, manage your time better, be a little creative, and take out some free time so that you can think about what you would really like to do and start experimenting with it on your job, within your current role, and see how you feel about it and let it blossom from there, let it grow from there.
And what have been some of the best resources that you've used over your time to help you learn and to help you grow to where you are now?
Yeah, I'm using one of those resources right now, these headphones. A good pair of headphones can transform your life. Yeah, absolutely. I was in the UK then, Richard, and one of the first Apple iPods had with 80 GB actual, they had a physical hard disk in them. They had a model with 80 gigabytes, really bulky, and it had a physical hard drive in it. And that was one of the first iPods I bought, and I loaded it with different sort of audiobooks and Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins and The Secret and Seth Speaks and Abraham Hicks and all different, Dr. Wayne Dyer and so many others. And this is what I do, driving, so I sort of flooded myself with these masters of their own field until a lot of this stuff stayed behind and started resonating with me and started using that information. So that was one of the first tools. Audio. But I think that depends a lot upon your learning style. For me, I'm more auditory and I listen to things and I can grasp them easily. So that really helped. On-the-job learning was, again, huge. I perhaps did not appreciate it as much when I was going through it as I do now, reflecting back on it. But going through all those difficult, challenging, and varied experiences in different cultures, odd jobs and hospitality industry, and living in different parts of the world. So all of that, as I reflect back, whatever we're doing right now and whatever environment we're in, whatever challenges we're facing, the unpleasant things, they're all here to teach us and to help us grow into something better. We might not appreciate them at this point of time, but we will if we develop the awareness. And then investing some money every year in attending conferences and workshops. I continue to do that until date. Because there's other folks have condensed their life's lessons, into a one-day workshop, or 30 years of the experience into a 3-hour something. So it is a great return on investment to go out and listen to them, and you might find something new. Those sort of the things that come to my mind at this moment.
I think learning, continuous learning is something, I do notice that a lot of people kind of stop, and I think that's where you carry on growing, and you get a little bit lost with yourself sometimes. I think learning, just continuous learning, whether it's reading a book or going to a conference, like you say, or going onto a workshop, I think that helps gives happiness and satisfaction.
It does.
Kind of feel like, when you're not learning something, you're kind of just stuck in the same circle that you've always been in. It's about branching out. Who would you say I suppose inspirational people to you then? For people, I know you've mentioned a few names just then, but people that you've seen live, maybe in workshops.
So I think two individuals come to my mind. One is a gentleman by the name of Bruce Farrow. He ran a company called Helford 2000 in the UK, doing NLP trainings and hypnotherapy and timeline. That was a 10-day workshop, apart from the learning material, the audio CDs and everything. Great storyteller, master of his craft, in terms of teaching us NLP. great presence. That left quite an impact, you know, the whole learning experience there. And straight after that was Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. So yeah, his firewalk in London, Excel, the Excel Stadium area, we were 10,000 people, and we did the firewalk there and attended his 3-day program. Very high octane, high intensity. You know how Tony is in his presentation style. But I think it came at the right time. So timing is really important. So it was sort of the time when I was planning this move back to India, planning this huge lifestyle change. The beauty of this is once you raise the standards in one area of your life, you suddenly want to raise them in every area of your life. So I had a detox thing going on for about a year. There's no alcohol, no meat for maybe 1 or 2 years. I lost 20, 25 kilos in the process, became more aware about my fitness and everything. And Tony's workshop was a catalyst in that process.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say about the NLP training. I did my NLP training, and it was in London. It was a gentleman called Ewan Mockery. I was kind of amazed with his delivery and his storytelling as well. But that was the one moment that made me move to the company I'm in now. It kind of gave, I was like, I need to change. It also empowered me to get out of where I was at that time.
That's great, because it allows you the time and space to step back from the treadmill of life, right? And to see what you're actually doing.
If we were never to speak again, if I was never to speak to you again and never see you again, what would be your last words of wisdom to me or to the audience, the people that are listening?
Continue doing what you're doing. Continue evolving. You've mentioned some major changes that you went through, that changes that were not thrust upon you, but you consciously decided to initiate them. And that's remarkable. That's courageous. So my last in parting, I'd say to you and to everyone is every morning, take a deep breath in, inhale, and pat yourself on the back and say, well done, right? And honor yourself and your struggle and your journey, and recognize that you've probably done a few things that you shouldn't have, but still, despite that, you've done very well, and that you have initiated some major changes in your life. A lot of people are not able to do that despite knowing that, and let that be your source of courage, motivation to initiate other changes, to understand that you yourself are the biggest project that you will ever undertake, and to never stop working on that project, to never say that it's done, but at the same time to not beat yourself up, to not be harsh on yourself, be gentle on yourself, to honor yourself, and to enjoy the journey, to not be in a huge rush to get somewhere, because there will always be more goalposts after the one that you've accomplished. To enjoy the journey as it unfolds, but at the same time to keep course correcting yourself if you find that you're ever off track.
Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for you being here today and you know your valuable time.
Thank you, Richard. No. Thank you for having me and for creating this space, this platform for these wonderful conversations. Thank you.
If you'd like to reach out to Simerjeet Singh, then we have left the links in the description. This has been Richard Roser and Simerjeet Singh. Peace out.